Hi everyone, welcome to the Goat Guys channel. My name is Manic Lord and today I'm going to be going through the deck that I used at the recent Grand Prix event that they held. I decided to run an empty jar because the Goat Guys Grand Prix event that was recently held was single elimination, and I felt that an alternate win condition deck would have a better chance of making it through to the later stages of the Grand Prix. The goal of empty jar is to deck out the opponent. You achieve this by filling the hand thanks to the effects of your jars in combination with Book of Tayo. Then when they have enough cards in their hand, you can resolve your combination of card destruction and serial spell. I want to cover the monster lineup very quickly. So we have 3 copies of Mystic Tomato and 1 copy of Sangan. These are your recruiters and these get you to your Morphing Jar or Cyber Jar. There are times where you do need to summon the Cyber Jar off the Mystic Tomato so that you can play Book of Moon on the Cyber Jar, and from there you can pull off your combos. To round up the monster lineup, we have 3 copies of Thunder Dragon. These thin the deck, obviously. They're really good with your draw cards that you run, and it gives you some sort of delinquent duo protection. So the spell lineup is to get you towards your end goal of being able to deck out your opponent. So you have 3 Book of Tayo, which works with your jars so that they can be flipped out the turn they are set. You have your standard draw cards in Graceful Charity, Pot of Greed, Upstart Goblin. You don't really care too much about the life point gain because your end goal is to deck out your opponent. You have 3 copies of Reload, which allow you to shuffle your dead cards in your hand and allows you to draw into the combo pieces you need. Remember that Reload forces you to shuffle all the cards that are in your hand into your deck. It's not like Magical Mallet, so you need to make sure that you set the cards that you want to use this turn before you go ahead and play your Reload. Book of Moon is quite an important card. It comes up most when you resolve a Morphing Jar through Book of Tayo, but there are times where you're summoning Cyber Jar by a Premature Burial or by Mystic Tomato, so that in that case the Cyber Jar is face up in attack position. You play your Book of Moon, set the Cyber Jar, and then you can play your combos from there. Book of Moon is also important for dealing with the Floodgate Fusion monsters. Darkbolt to the Tailbolt is normally a very good choice against the deck because you run a whole bunch of normal spells to thin your deck and get you closer to your win condition, and it also negates the effects of any effect monster it destroys in battle. So if it destroys any of your low level monsters, then they won't get their effects. Fiend Skull Dragon is another important monster that can come up. It negates the effects of flip effect monsters, and this is a continuous effect, so you need to have a means of shutting off the Floodgate Fusion monsters, and Book of Moon does that. For your back row hate, you've got 1 copy of Heavy Storm. Simple enough, clear the back row, allow you to go off with your combos, and 3 Giant Trunade. Giant Trunade I feel is more of a combo card in this deck. Not only does it clear your opponent's back rows, there are times where you do need to set your hand, especially Serial Spell, and you can't activate quick play spells the turn you set them, so you need to play the Giant Trunade to get it back to your hand. Giant Trunade also has the benefit of adding cards to your opponent's hand for card destruction. In terms of recursion, as I mentioned earlier, you have your 1 copy of Premature Burial. You normally use it to revive a jar if you need to combo off, but you can also use it to summon a Tomato or a Sangan to crash into your opponent's monster. Don't forget that there are times where the opponent has face-up attack position monsters trying to pressure you, go for game, and that's where you use Premature Burial to get the jar you need. You have 3 copies of the Shallow Grave. Summon your jar in face down defense position, flip them face up with the Book of Tayo. You have 3 copies of Spell Reproduction, necessary because you only have 3 copies of Book of Tayo. You need to reuse the spells. And you have 2 copies of A Feather of the Phoenix. Well, it's not strictly necessary in GOAT format because you can activate card destruction when you have more cards in your hand than you have in your deck. It does come in handy with Upstart Goblin or your draw cards. You stack the cards you want back to the top of your deck, then you draw a card, and normally that's your combo piece to go off. The 3 defensive spell cards I've chosen for the deck are 2 copies of Scapegoat and a copy of Swords of Reading Light. I decided to go for Scapegoat instead of the copies of Level Limit Area B that you normally tend to find in these sorts of decks, because I felt that they gave me a wall. They did the same job as Level Limit Area B in most cases, and it helped me with my transition side, which was initially a Benkei OTK. Last two spell cards I want to cover are Card Destruction and Serial Spell. Card Destruction forces both players to discard their hands, and they draw the same number of cards that they discarded. So normally this is in combination with a hand that you filled up through the effect of Saboteur. It's also a combo piece when you don't have anything going and you need to dig deeper into your deck. Serial Spell is normally used in combination with the Card Destruction. Serial Spell duplicates the effect of a normal spell. You need to make sure that you have at least one card in your hand when you activate Serial Spell, because you need to be able to discard at least one card in your hand for cost. Before I go in depth into the side deck choice that I chose, I want to mention that the traditional side deck approach, namely you side Prohibition for Necromane King or whatever you're afraid of, Royal Decree for traps, Mind Control to steal your opponent's monsters and use their flip effects, Nidoria to deal with monsters, all that usual stuff. You can definitely go through that approach. It's been tried and tested. As I mentioned earlier, I did play around with a Benkei OTK side. The problem I had with the side was that it was quite weak to warriors, and it also needed too many combo pieces to get going, because as you know, with Benkei you need to have multiple equips in your hand to be able to equip to the Benkei so that it can attack multiple times. The Cyber Sign strategy normally requires fewer cards than the Benkei OTK one. You summon your Cyber Sign either by normal summon, or you search it out using Misty Tomato or Cyber Jar, pay your 5,000 life points, drop your copy of Master of Oz onto the field, combine it with your bunch of equipped spells, and on Wild Nature's Release, swing for game. To go with the Cyberstein side, you definitely need to run some life point gain cards, as you can drop below 5,000 life points. You have 3 copies of Nimble Momonga. Nimble Momonga, when destroyed in battle, you gain 1,000 life points, and you can summon up to 2 other copies from your deck in face down defense position. I thought Token Thanksgiving was a fun choice, and it made a lot of sense as I was main decking copies of Scapegoat, and it also comes to clear opposing copies of Goat tokens. This allows you to clear your opponent's field in most cases, and you swing for game with your boosted Master of Oz. Poison of the Old Man gives you the 1,200 life points that you may need to pay towards the Cyberstein, or it deals 800 points of damage, which is normally the last few points of damage if for whatever reason your Master of Oz boosted by the equipped spells and or Wild Nature's Release doesn't finish off the opponent. There are a few issues with the side deck. You need to make sure that you're above 5,000 life points so that you can resolve your Cyberstein. Trap Dust Shoot gives away the game straight away because they will know that you don't have any empty jar stuff, and the deck also gets shut down by Spell Canceller because I don't run any sort of trap removal. I want to give credit for this build to Delinquent, especially his main deck choice in Format Library Championship 11 and the side deck choice that he chose at Worlds, which is the Stein side. You'll have Jizz and Tonic to blame for me going down this path of wanting to run empty jar at this tournament. I want to give a shout out to all the guys that normally turn up to a locals in East London called Sneak Attack Games. Hope to see you guys soon when this is all lifted. I hope you enjoyed this deck profile. Any comments or suggestions, please leave them in the comments below.